The information shared on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. While we discuss topics related to mental health, well-being, and emotional support, we are not providing therapy or medical services. Always seek the advice of your physician, psychologist, psychiatrist, or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a mental health condition. If you are in crisis, feeling unsafe, or need immediate support, please contact a mental health professional or emergency services in your area. The views expressed by guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of any affiliated organizations or institutions.
Get inspired, get motivated with M.A.Y.A and the M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition podcast.
Something that I take pride in is trying to be forward thinking, thinking outside the box, challenging myself. And as I challenge myself, hopefully I challenge you.
Find M.A.Y.A on Twitter and Instagram at M.A.Y.A_Akai. On Facebook at M.A.Y.A Akai Presents.
We're going to talk health, wealth, fitness, mental health, financial, lots of different things that can empower you as you seek out the ambition that you're pursuing.
Or get everything M.A.Y.A at MAYAAkai.com.
Namaste, everyone. Welcome to episode 74. We're stacking them. We're doing good. And these last shows have been amazing. Of course, of M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition. Of course, this podcast is about embracing those salient topics related to mental wellness. And I'm trying to bring things from a fresh and forward, thinking perspective. So we like to pull back that veil of self-doubt and sabotage that it plagues every single one of us at some point in our lives. And I want you to help to identify those things so you can reach and grab out that ambition that you want, to harness the motivation, to yield the satisfaction you want in your everyday life. And episode 74, let's talk fertility. Oh, people get all kind of skirmish when I say that. Let's talk fertility because they somehow equated to, wait, is this about like biological parts of men and women? Yes, we're going to be talking about things like that today. So everybody put on your big girl and big boy pants because we're going to have adult conversations and have things that are really important. And our guest today, oh my God, Dr. Simmons is so amazing. She's not once, but twice. She's double board certified as a naturopath doctor and an endocrinologist. She specializes in fertility. But if you think about that, that's about one of the extensions of what women health is. So if you are a first-time listener or viewer, welcome. I always say buckle up for safety because occasionally it might get unexpectedly bumpy. We might say something that may make you say, I love doing that because only my older folks will know when I say things that make you go, You younger folks, go Google CNC Music Factory and you'll probably love the song. But anyways, I always say, if you're a returning listener, you know how we do things here. It's like, 45, 50 minutes of time that you've carved out for yourself to learn something. So use the time wisely. Grab your drink of choice, some coffee, tea, whatever it is. It's 5 p.m. somewhere. So feel glad to have a glass of wine if you want that too. Grab some pencil and paper and jot down, take notes. Because even if this particular podcast isn't something that can help you, I guarantee you somebody in your life, whether it's a daughter, a granddaughter, a friend, somebody will probably be able to benefit from the information you're going to learn today. So this is our 7th installment of the Ambition Show, which I like to say is kind of an extension of what M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition is, because I have literally been talking to people who are taking their passion and their purpose, and they're taking it forward with their motivation and ambition. So if you've missed any of the past episodes, make sure you go listen. You can find me on iTunes, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify. Pretty much if it's a podcast platform, you can find me. I will encourage you to subscribe and share my YouTube channel, as well as you can get social with me. And guess what, everybody? I finally got it together. All my platforms have the same handle. M.A.Y.A speaks to you. So now you don't have to figure out how you can find me. So you can subscribe, file everything. But if you want to make things easy, you can always just go to my website, which is www.maya-speaks.com, and all things M.A.Y.A is there. There's 2 things on my webpage that I really love. I have an inspirational blog where once a week, only on Wednesdays, I post something that I really want you to take in and reflect that can help you grow and kind of move you forward and getting to that best version of yourself. And the other side is something that's near and dear to me, is my menopause blog, which is called Me on Pause, because everyone who listens to my show knows that I am the poster child for menopause. Like, I'm probably about to break out in a sweat in about 5 minutes. So with that being said, I love my menopause blog because I'm sharing so many things that I didn't know. And I like to share it with other women. I want to recap really quickly. Our last episode, 73, we had on Ron Sowers II, and that was about ADHD. And I'm going to tell you, a lot of people got some great information from that. He has a fantastic self-discovery journal as well that could be available that you can find on Amazon, as well as on his website. But without further ado, let's jump into our next guest, our seventh guest, who is going to step onto the ambition stage, Dr. Aumatma Simmons. She is so amazing. I'm telling you, I was so taken with her. I started following her, reading her articles, and I'm going to say the things that I have learned has been amazing, to the point where I start referring a lot of the people that I actually have in therapy that are dealing with some things that are women health or fertility related. I said, I have someone that you really need to check out because there's a lot of great information here. When I said earlier, she is a double board certified naturopathic doctor. She's an endocrinologist. She's been in practice for more than 15 years. Yes, she specializes in fertility, but remember I said that's also an overarching part of what women's health is. But if that isn't enough, she's also a best-selling author of not one book, but two books. She likes to do things in twos, if you haven't noticed. Her one book is Fertility Secrets, What Your Doctor Didn't Tell You. And I'm going to tell you that part I honestly believe is very true, because I think about all the things I have learned that my doctor didn't tell me. So that book alone about fertility secrets, I guarantee, I know there's going to be so many amazing things in there. And the second book is called In Fertility, Struggles, Secrets, and Success. And the key thing about that, that's a collaboration with other women that are devoted to women's health and fertility. And of course, it wouldn't be enough if she didn't have a podcast. So she has Egg, everyone get ready, Meets Sperm, because fertility takes two. So she also has a podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast. So with all that being said, without further ado, let's bring on our next guest to the ambition stage, Dr. Simmons. Yay!
Thank you for having me, Maya. That's such a sweet introduction.
Oh, I have just, you know what? I have been smitten and girl crushing on you for a minute. When we had myself, my Riley and I, my associate producer, when we met you, we just talked and went over so much stuff. And I really dug in deep because I really do have a passion for women's health. Mm-hmm. And even though what I may look at might be a little bit more focused on menopause, I do believe this conversation here is so important about fertility, because I have a lot of younger patients that are struggling with women health and fertility issues, mm-hmm. and they really don't know what to do. So when I met you, I was like, oh, this is fantastic, because you are just you're the expert, you are the authority, you just are amazing. So with that being said, you are double board certified. Tell us your journey, how, let's be honest, most people, when they hear that someone's a naturopathic doctor, they think it's hocus pocus magic, because it's not Western medicine. But I personally, I'm an advocate, because that has been the doctors I've worked with that have been life-changing for me. So tell us about your journey, how you've got to, become a naturopathic doctor, but what got you into fertility as well?
Oh, so many stories, honestly. So I grew up as a East Indian child that was basically destined to become a doctor, right? Like, I didn't have a choice about it. My parents from a very young age were like, you're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a doctor, of course. You're going to be a doctor. You're going to be a doctor. And so I flew through high school, get to college, majoring in pre-med biology and hating every second of it. And I was like, I cannot do this for another 4, 8, 10 years. Like, this is just not what I want to do. And so I'm going through undergrad, just kind of figuring out okay, I don't really love biology. I don't love my sciencey classes. I do love religion and I love psychology. And several times I tried to change my major to psychology. And my parents were like, absolutely not. We will disown you if you do that. And I was like, oh, crap. What? Why? And I've realized since then that it's a major taboo. From their mindset, it's a taboo to go to a psychologist, to meet a psychiatrist, like all of the things. So I'm going through, I'm like a month from graduation from undergrad and feeling very lost because I was like, I don't want to go to medical school and I can't work in a lab. That's not really what I want to do. What am I going to do with my life? And I'm visiting my parents at their house, and I went to go get the mail from the mailbox, and what do I see? Like, it's a pamphlet that basically says mind, body, spirit on the cover. And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. This is it. Like, I've been asking my professors, nobody can tell me anything. They're like, you're a hippie, just go live in California. And I was like, I really want to know how to integrate psychology, religion, and body stuff. So Body, Mind, Spirit really spoke to me. And within 5 minutes, I was like, this is what I'm doing with my life. I'm going to go to naturopathic medical school. And so that was kind of how I got into naturopathic medicine. I graduated. I did that I was practicing for 5 years and simultaneously married to this guy who I had been with for a very long time. And he wanted to start having children. And I was like, no. Like, literally every time he talked about babies, my uterus was like, no. And I was like, oh crap, what? And I was like, I think I made a really wrong decision somewhere along the way, because I didn't think about it. Like, before he started talking about it, it wasn't on my radar whether I wanted to have children, whether I wanted to have them now, whether it was him that was the issue. So it took me a while to like kind of filter through my emotions about this. And I got to the point where I realized that it was him, that I did want to have children, but not with him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh crap, that means a divorce, finding a new partner, and eventually, hopefully, being able to have a child. And all of that on a clock that's about to run out really soon. Because, of course, what I learned in medical school was your fertility drops off of a cliff at 35. So as I was going through this, I was like, do I just have a child with him just because? Like, just get it done and then I have a child? And literally, like, all parts of my body were like, absolutely not. There's no way. My hormones were so out of whack. I was exhausted, burnt out. I was literally like in writhing pain with every single menstrual cycle. And now I have a very different viewpoint on this. But in the moment, I didn't realize that it was all connected to this fertility thing. But now looking back at it, I'm like, oh, my body was telling me that this was the wrong person from the beginning. Like, when we started our relationship, I had horrendous menstrual cycles. I didn't feel well. It was, all of the signs were pointing that it was not the right person for me to be with. Yet here I was 7 years into this relationship. And I decided, okay, I'm going to get a divorce and I'm going to figure out what I can do for my fertility. And that was really the beginning, because as I was learning things, I was kind of like questioning a lot of the stuff that I had been taught. And my friends were suddenly like, oh, you can help me get pregnant. And I'm like, no, that's not the plan. And they were like, no, really, we need help with this. And I was like, really? People need help with fertility? Like, I was very oblivious to what an issue this is. The fact that like so many people were struggling, and the more that I talked about fertility, the more people would come up to me in private, not open to having public conversations, but in private, like, oh my God, can you like give me some tips, or what can I do? I've been trying for a really long time. It's not working. So I just started seeing like what a big problem it was. And we hadn't, we hadn't necessarily like learned a ton in school about it. So I got lots more education to try and help the people that were struggling with this issue. So that's kind of how I got into fertility. And I've been in it for 14 years, something like that. So when I started, there were 4 of us naturopathic doctors that specialize in fertility. There were 4 in the entire country. Uh,
4 in the
y-
entire country.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And now there's a lot more, but probably not that many. Like not a ton, right? Like you have to really look to find a naturopathic doctor that specializes in fertility. And I think a lot of doctors specialize in women's health, which
Yes.
is a good like overarching thing, but I think fertility is a beast all on its own. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. I can honestly say I have known 1, 2, 3, like 4 people that have had to use IVF in order to
Mhm.
conceive.
Mhm.
And as I was, doing my research and reading things and learning more once I met you, it's interesting. I was like, wait a minute. Everything that you're doing to me is like the precursor to IVF. Because I
Mhm.
feel like if you're doing all these things before you do IVF, which means maybe you won't even need it, it
Mhm.
it sets you up to have a better pregnancy, especially if you were struggling. So when someone is like struggling to pretty much conceive, or do people even come to you and say, I know down the road I want to have children, but I already know I have issues like PCOS or
Mhm.
endometriosis or things like
Mhm.
that. Is there something I can do that's going to make my ability to have children more likely to have them than not? Kind of how do you
Mhm.
approach this with people?
Yeah, I wish there were more people that would come to me earlier, right? Like most women who have endometriosis or PCOS are going to go to their OB and going to be put on birth control. And that is their solution for endometriosis and PCOS. And even fibroids sometimes is just like, well, just take the birth control pill. You're fine. And I think that if I saw many more of those people, we would be able to help set up their hormones so that they don't even need birth control, but when it comes time for their fertility, that it be a lot easier. Unfortunately, they don't usually come. There are a few, but not by any means at the scale at which the problems exist, right? So that's unfortunate. Um, with the people that we do see, they will come, usually they've struggled for quite some time. We see a lot of people on the flip side of IVF. So they've been through 3 to 6 IVF cycles. And then they're like, hey, something is really wrong because IVF was supposed to work. And I literally like mortgaged a whole house to be able to afford
Yeah.
IVF.
Yes.
And I'm still not pregnant. I still don't have the baby. What do I do? So we will see kind of the scale of all of the you know along the journey. Some everywhere, everything from like 1 year of trying to, all the way up to like 12 years of trying.
And I think it's at least a couple of the people that I know that definitely chose to go the route of IVF because they were struggling to conceive on their own. Yes, the cost is so expensive, which means for some people, legitimately, it may never be an option because this is not something that's affordable. And there is actually no necessary guarantee
Yeah.
that it's going to work. But something that I recently learned, and when I was reading through your stuff, and I saw about hormone imbalances. So I want to start with that because
Mhm.
I had a person I was working with in therapy, and when she was younger in her early 20s, she had her oldest daughter naturally, and then her other 2 children had to be through IVF. Do you know
Mhm.
what she came to learn as she was in the IVF process? And I thought this is something that I believe would probably be so common but never checked for.
Mm.
It turns out that she was naturally has low estrogen,
Mm.
and she never knew that,
Mhm.
and did not find that out, believe it or not, until she stepped into trying to do the IVF, and then they began to address it, and that obviously helped with the process. How does hormone imbalance play into this?
Hormone imbalances are crucial to being addressed as part of the fertility journey, because if what your hormones are doing are basically they're signaling something else in your body to do something, right? So, for example, the brain has a hormone called TSH that signals the thyroid to produce thyroid hormone.
Mhm.
The brain signals the ovary twice a month, once to produce a follicle, and the second time to ovulate or release that follicle out of the ovary. So the hormonal system is really just a signaling mechanism for communication between different parts of the body to happen and to regulate whatever needs to happen. So if your hormones are out of whack, that really is saying, hey, something is going on that is ineffectively communicating with something else. For example, another example, your blood sugar is regulated by a hormone called insulin from the pancreas. And insulin, actually, the receptors for insulin exist in lots of parts of the body.
Mhm.
And what they do is basically insulin binds and it opens up the cell walls to absorb or allow sugar into the cell.
Mhm.
The ovaries are interestingly affected by insulin. So if you have this dysregulation of insulin, what ends up happening in the fertility cycle is anovulation. So a lot of people with these insulin resistance type things where the insulin binds, but the cell doesn't actually do what it's supposed to do, that is often correlated to PCOS and anovulation and ovulatory cycles.
Okay.
So we have all of these, we have so many hormones in our body, and all of
Mhm.
the hormones are signaling things that are happening. And estrogen, I think, is honestly like it should be paid more attention to, in my opinion. Um, and we find that with estrogen in particular, if you if your estrogen doesn't actually produce and build like it should, then the ovulation surge becomes really challenging or delayed or sometimes just doesn't happen. And if that ovulation surge doesn't happen, you don't ovulate. So then getting pregnant just becomes almost impossible. And just like your lady, I had a 39-year-old with very, very low estrogen. And she had been through 4 different IVF cycles, 3 different doctors. She was basically like her hormones were good outside of the estrogen. And I'm looking at her hormones and saying, "Wow, your estradiol is a 9." That's literally the lowest I've ever seen. And I'm like asking her all these questions, like what did your doctors do? What were the cycles like? What happened with the retrievals? And she's like, "Well, they don't get any eggs from me, or if they get eggs, they're not good quality." And pretty much every IVF cycle had failed for her. Um, she was like, "Is there something you can do?" And I said, "Well, has your estrogen always been this level?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, it's always been around like below 10 for sure." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's why you're not getting pregnant." And she was like, "What?" And she's like, "Is that low?" I'm like, "Yeah, nobody told you that?"
Mhm.
And she's like, "No, no one has had that conversation with me." And you like that level of estrogen is common in menopause, right? So
Mhm.
she
Mhm.
had baggy skin, her like spots on her face, just all the things that you would expect in like a 55, 60-year-old woman is what she was expressing with
Mhm.
vaginal dryness. She had vaginal microbiome dysbiosis, which is basically like all these bugs that shouldn't be in your vagina were present. So she had a lot of things, all from the fact that her body didn't make enough estrogen. And within like 4 months of supporting her body to produce its own estrogen, her skin is like tightened up. She's like, I feel amazing. I have a sex drive. I'm like having cervical mucus for the first time in like years. What's going on? And she is like literally like complete transformation for her health overall, right? Like forget pregnancy or not, but her body just like revived from the inside out. And that's the potential for estrogen, right?
Okay.
Like we need it so much.
So here it is. Now you've got people's mental juices flowing here. So we have a listener who has a question.
Oh yeah.
What can you do to protect your estrogen levels? Because, you know, as women, everyone talks about estrogen. They make the assumption if you're young that your levels should actually be okay. And you just said something that I was like, okay, she naturally kind of raised her level. So even though we're not talking menopause, you know, all my menopausal women just went, whoa, whoa, whoa. Well, what maybe can I do to kind of like, you know, boost this up a little bit since I know naturally I'm dropping. So tell us more about these estrogen levels. And
okay, so what can we do naturally? I think it's slightly different in cycling women versus non-cycling women. So for menopause, it becomes a little trickier because as your ovaries kind of stop producing follicles, the follicles are actually what is producing estrogen in a cycling female. So the brain signals FSH, the follicle stimulating hormone. That hormone signals the production of follicles. You get like 15 follicles per cycle that are being produced. And as they grow, they're essentially building the level of estrogen. And then that estrogen feedback loops back to the brain to say, hey, we have plenty of follicles. They're all growing. And the brain goes, oh, okay, ding, 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 time to ovulate, and sends a different signal to ovulate. So in cycling women, the natural flow of estrogen is actually supported by making sure that the brain is signaling the ovary adequately with the FSH, and that the woman is producing follicles. So sometimes like the ovaries are non-responsive, even if the brain is giving the signal. The ovaries are like, do I have to? Can't I just hang out? Do I really need to? So for her, it was getting that follicle stimulating hormone to do its action on the ovary and get the ovary to respond. And there's one herb that I love. I haven't looked at research for menopause. So for all the post cycling women, I don't know if it'll work for you. But for cycling women, shatavari, which is the herb that we will use it in microdoses, because I kid you not, it like ramps up estrogen so fast. It's like a super potent herb that will have impact on the ovaries to help those follicles develop. And then the more the follicles develop, the more estrogen. What I will say, and I've been thinking about this quite a lot because perimenopause and menopause have become the it conversation right now. So what I have been considering is, when we support fertility and when we do that fertility process in a way that's like, how do I nourish my hormones? How do I nourish my body to the point where I have enough hormonal signaling to support the long-term factors that are needed to get pregnant? When we do that, I truly believe that you actually like prolong perimenopause and menopause. And I was talking to one of my colleagues about this because she's very similar in her mindset. And she was like, oh, I'm 48 and I have zero perimenopause symptoms, none. And I was like, yeah, I'm 45. I don't either. Are we weird? Like, is this a weird thing?
Mm-mm.
And as we were talking, we were like, yeah, like we're paying so much attention to our hormones because we're fertility people. And and both of us tend to live what we preach. So we are just like, my plan is one day to wake up and be in menopause and not have all of the fluctuations of hormones that perimenopause is. And I'm pretty much done with that phase, right? Like 35 to 45 is perimenopause for most women. And the fact that I haven't had a hot flash or night sweats or literally none.
That's well, that is absolute. You know what? May the universe keep blessing you. But you know what's so it's interesting you say that because I'm 53.
Mm,
And what
you
I
look so good,
noticed,
by the way.
thank you.
I can't believe it.
What I noticed, and I do think there maybe is this maybe shift in the idea of even because I'm perimenopausal. I'm actually
Yeah.
not menopause. So you know
Yeah.
what? Shame on me because this is what I'm doing my doctorate on, and I should be talking about this better. Menopause is you haven't had a cycle for more than a year, you're shutting down, you're done. Whereas perimenopause is you're in the process of your levels dropping, you still can have a cycle. It may become, you may miss months, it could be heavier on months, things like that. Then comes the hot flashes. My focus is the mental health piece because what most people don't attribute to any form of being perimenopausal or menopausal is that memory can get so bad you might think you're early Alzheimer's or something because your memory can be, you can like walk in the kitchen 5 times. I got to the point where I was like, I'm gonna start putting post-it notes on my cats because I've walked in the kitchen a couple times and can't remember why I'm in here. So memory becomes impacted, your mood, depression can set in, irritability. These are things that most people have never associated with going through the process of transitioning into menopause. So the thing I noticed is at 43, the first symptom I had, because there's actually 36 symptoms that are related to going through the transition.
Totally.
Sleep was the first thing that changed for me. At 43, I could no longer sleep through the night. I would wake up 1, 2, 3 times.
Yeah.
That was the first piece. At 45, the symptom that popped up for me was definitely my mood. I became more irritable. I developed depression. And these were all things that I never struggled with, and anxiety. As I said, I'm the poster child. I was still having a cycle. It wasn't until roughly, honestly, until 50 that my cycle began to fluctuate. So I'm like, you guys are so lucky that it hasn't even knocked on your door. You probably shouldn't have said anything because now the perimenopausal gnome is probably knocking on your door right now. Like, oh, you think you're getting out of here without a symptom? But that's interesting because I now think I know women that are 58 that still have a cycle.
Yeah,
and they're mad. And they're mad, by the way. And they're mad.
They're mad about it. They're like,
supposed to
when
be
is
done.
this coming away?
Supposed to be done. Oh, we got another question. Like I said, you've got people thinking. So someone is like, is there a way to know you have low estrogen, especially if you're a younger person? Because remember, you don't think you should have low estrogen if under 40. And physicians would never often consider that when women maybe go in complaining about irregular cycles and things like that.
Yeah. So there's several ways to monitor your hormones. And I think that this test is worth doing once a year and your doctor won't order it, which is FSH, LH, estradiol, and and AMH. If you are cycling as a female, you being able to have a checkpoint for all of your hormones once a year, just to see like what's happening, right? And what you are looking for is estradiol. Sorry, I'll backtrack. All of these hormones should be tested on cycle day 3 because that is the low point of all of the hormones. So that's where you get a baseline. So you want to get them tested. You can do it in blood. It's not necessary to do fancy tests. These, you can usually like get these paid out of pocket, like maybe $150, maybe a little bit less. If you take off the AMH, it's like 90 something. So you can do that set of hormones on cycle day 3 every single year to just get a sense of where is my estrogen usually, and if that estradiol is optimal for fertility is between 40 and 50. I think that's also optimal for general health and well-being. So that's the good point. And then if you are below that, it's probably too low. And 9 is definitely way, way, way too low.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And that's good to know. Like I said, because I find more and more people are like, since estrogen, everything can start trending. It becomes the hot topic. And so I think people are thinking more about it because there's a big push to talk about or sell things for like perimenopause and menopause. So I do believe that's why the estrogen conversation's on the table. But something else I've encountered, I always look at there's trends. Like I always feel like there's more people in the world that have been diagnosed with ADHD than I've ever heard before.
Yeah.
I also now have met quite a few younger women, and I found out some of my older clients have been diagnosed with PCOS.
Yeah.
Most people are not familiar with that is. They don't understand why they actually have it. Can you shed the light on what is PCOS?
PCOS is misnamed diagnoses, which basically is polycystic ovarian syndrome. So from the name, we would assume that you have cysts on your ovaries. This is unfortunately not always true. And this is why like so many people miss the diagnosis because they're looking for cysts on the ovaries. They don't see it. The doctor is like, yeah, you're good. You don't have polycystic ovarian syndrome. Unfortunately, the technical diagnosis of polycystic ovarian syndrome also is you can have testosterone, like high testosterone metabolites. You can have insulin resistance, which I mentioned a little earlier, and then inflammation. So it's really a syndrome, and there's a bunch of things happening simultaneously. But I think that, we see that it exists for a lot more people than they are diagnosed with more frequently than not. So having the workup is really important. Is it okay if I feel like I have a few threads that are still going from before? Can I jump into that just for a second?
Yeah, no. We go with the flow here. So yes,
yeah. So estrogen, I want to go back to it because it's such I feel like it's the hormone that just doesn't get enough light shed on it. Protecting our estrogen levels. The biggest thing that we need to be aware of is that there are estrogen killers. And the estrogen killers are essentially plastic. So everywhere you find plastic, those compounds called BPA, bisphenol A, bisphenol S, F, there's a whole bunch of them. All the bisphenol compounds are estrogen mimickers. So you ingest something with plastic or you absorb it from your skin, which literally if you wear plastic on your body, which all of us do, it's almost impossible to find natural fabric clothing.
Right.
You have to go like way out of your way to find it. So all of the non-natural fabric clothing is polyester, which is plastic, and you're absorbing it in from your skin. That will fool your body into thinking that it has too much estrogen. So all of these BPA compounds go and bind to receptors that are made for estrogen, but they don't actually support the body to do what that estrogen would do. So now your body stops making estrogen because it's like, well, all the receptors are full. We're good. But the fake estrogens are not actually having the action that they should in your body. So I think when we talk about like what can we do to protect our natural estrogen production, that has to be the first and foremost thing. And then there was another thing that I wanted to comment on that you said, which is your sleep when you started perimenopause was the first thing to decline. And there's actually a ton of research that basically is melatonin is probably the crucial hormone that is regulating our entry into perimenopause, which is crazy because melatonin has nothing to do, supposedly, with our ovaries. However, melatonin, and I love melatonin, it is one of the hormones that I talk about the most in the fertility world because regulating our circadian rhythm, meaning the production of cortisol and melatonin, morning and night, that is the foundation for the infradian rhythm, which is the rhythm of our female cycle hormones. So if our core foundational rhythm is out of whack, we're too stressed, we are doing too much, we're got the rushing woman syndrome, we've like just overly on the do, and simultaneously we don't have enough of a signal for melatonin, or that melatonin is getting shut down because we're exposed to blue light at night, we're not turning to more red lighted things at bedtime or the few hours before bed. So really like being in sync with sunset and like shifting out of our blue light to red light at night is really what regulates the production of melatonin in the body. And if we're not doing that, we don't have a good, healthy circadian rhythm, it's going to be really hard to keep our healthy infradian rhythm. And a lot of things are based off of that. So fertility is definitely based off of that. And I would say that most people don't prioritize it enough, but it is probably one of the first things that we work on and the thing that we like hammer into our clients the most, because they'll be like, oh, but I'm fine, I sleep 4 hours a night, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. Your body's not getting pregnant. Like, it's just not going to happen.
That is the Freudian you talked about with women. I've never heard that piece before. And it's interesting. One of the things we talk about when I work with clients is what's your sleep hygiene like? And when you talk about blue light, which is it's so enmeshed in our lives now because cell phones and computers, we're constantly in front of it, that I don't think people realize you have your brain in go mode. And one of the things we talk about when we're trying to work with people who struggle with sleep is you need to really evaluate your sleep hygiene, which is no TV, no phone, none of those, no blue light, at least an hour before you go to bed. Try to do something. I say this word to people and they swear I said a dirty word. I say, meditate before bed. You say meditate. People think it's a dirty word because it's like for people to sit down and want to quiet their mind to prepare for sleep is something that our society does not encourage people to do. That's probably the biggest thing. But when you just said about the melatonin piece, I have never taken melatonin to assume that would be the thing that could help me regulate my sleep. It has gotten better over time, but that's interesting because now that gives me one more thing that I'm going to go research to learn more about. But you did it again because now someone has a question and they said, how can they find out what their individual sleep cycle should be in order to keep a rhythm right? So is there an ideal amount of sleep? Those kind of things that they should keep in mind.
I think there's probably less individualization needed for the sleep cycle. So on a very foundational level, you wake up with the sun, you go to bed with the sun, right? So sunrise and sunset, you kind of live your life in that rhythm. Now, of course, I don't do that. And I think most people would be like, what? Are you crazy? So it is when you wake up, within the first 30 minutes of waking, you want to get sunlight onto your eyeballs. And ideally, that's natural sunlight. So if you wake up when the sun is up, then you're good. If you wake up earlier than that, which a lot of our clients are like nurses and have to get to work before 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So if that's you, then the alternate is that you get kind of a full spectrum healthy light bulb that you can hang up above your head. So the main thing is that you need to mimic the sun, right? So having it in front of you does not work. You have to have it coming from above you and kind of like hitting your eyes, sort of like the sun would. So you're trying to mimic it as much as you can. And there's some company that makes these glasses you can wear that just like hit your eyeballs. So if you're like, oh, I have to be on the go and I have to get out of the house, you can like wear these glasses while you're driving. So there's all these hacks that you can do, but essentially you're mimicking sunlight in the morning. Ideally, you get another dose of small amount of sunlight in the daytime. And that tells your brain like, hey, it's still daytime.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you get another dose of the setting sun, which tells your brain, hey, time to shift to melatonin. And if you don't, which like I don't get out 3 times a day, right? Like I'm in front of a computer all day. So what I tend to do is at about sunset is when I want to start wearing my blue light filter glasses. And that essentially filters the blue light so that it tells my brain, hey, time to produce melatonin, and helps to regulate that cycle. The other thing that I tell a lot of people is some people will be like, I work perfectly fine on 4 hours of sleep. And I'm like, okay, I understand you. And for the period of healing your fertility, you're going to sleep for 8 hours minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, you're going to sleep for 9 or 10 hours minimum. Because especially as women, sleep is the foundation for everything that our body is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And getting your body to produce its own melatonin is the best antioxidant that you can give your ovaries. So everyone comes to me with this like, what can I do for egg quality? I'm like, get some goddamn sleep. Like, what?
That's right.
I'm like, melatonin is this magical hormone that nourishes your ovaries, that feeds your eggs,
Wow.
that is literally like keep your ovaries healthy and plush and nice. It's melatonin. So do that. And then of course you can supplement if you need or want to. So supplementation is great. I think in perimenopause, supplementation is essential because it helps eliminate so many of these other symptoms that people are getting.
You know, it's interesting you talked about like the blue light glasses, because I always feel like, are you trying to get some more money out of me? Because funny enough, I started wearing glasses at 45. And so, you go to get glasses, they like, oh, do you want, this kind of lens? You need
Blue light,
bifocals and blue light. And you see that and you kind of think, really, blue light glasses? But now that you say it, they really do serve a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the long run.
It's for all the people out there that are like me that maybe are like, but I really want to watch my TV at night. Okay, do it with some blue light filter glasses.
Okay. It's good to know that this could be 100% legitimate, opposed to something somebody else is trying to upsell you when you go to get your glasses. Okay, so sleep is important in this. Obviously, let's talk about diet, because one of the things we talk about in mental health is gut health is directly related to mental health. And getting people to even begin to grasp that, they're like, well, what does that mean? It's like, think about it. If you don't have a healthy diet, if you're filling your body with toxins and never kind of purging them out, well, where do you think that all goes? And by the way, the plastic thing you mentioned is so interesting, because about 20 years ago, and it came to fruition, I met this guy who was working on a plant-based bottle for like water. And he was partnering with a couple water companies, and actually his bottle is out there. So now there are plant-based bottles. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which 2 water companies use them. Now, mind you, what you're going to notice is they're way softer. Like they bend, like, it's like you could crush them in between your hands. Like they're much thinner.
Yeah.
But there is now, I'm noticing, but that's the only place I've seen it has been with bottled water. I have not seen the plant-based bottles anywhere else at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't think I've noticed or looked for it. So thank you for that. I think I will check it out. But in general, like if you can filter your own water at home, fill it in a glass or stainless steel or whatever,
Mhm.
carry it with you. I don't have it right now, but I have like a 50-ounce bottle. It's
I,
huge.
I do too.
Like carry it everywhere, right?
Right.
It's that's kind of the way to go. And then you have your own water wherever you are and you're not worried about like, oh, am I getting enough water? Is this the right kind? Is it filtered? Is it
Right.
in the
So,
plastic?
but everything else in our life, because plastic is a part of our life. It's like
Yeah,
we can't
it's a
get
lot.
away from it. It's
Yeah.
packages everything. So, what is it if a person wants to be more conscious and just try to make that shift? Yes, you're right, because that's pretty much what I do with my water. I have stainless steel like
Yeah.
containers that I have. But
Yeah.
most things you buy often
Mhm.
will come in plastic, unless it's get away from buying things that are in plastic, which is kind of hard. But I guess it's possible to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, it is. It's hard in specific environments. So, like if you go to Trader Joe's, even your vegetables are wrapped in plastic. I'm like,
Mhm.
why? Just put them out. Like, why do I need this in plastic? So I resist buying stuff that has plastic, like packaging. Now, you're gonna get there's like a varying amount of plastic based on how it's being exposed, in the sense that if you have a plastic takeout container with hot food in it, that's a way bigger problem than the saran wrap that's around your zucchini at Trader Joe's, right? So
Right.
you can pick your poison. I say as much as possible, you're avoiding exposure. So you're not going to get rid of it completely. It's almost impossible. But you can get to a point where, okay, I cook most of my food. Maybe I buy at the farmer's market and have my own bag. And when I cook my food, I store it in glass containers. You're good, right? Like you have done as much as possible to move that spectrum towards less plastic. And then one day we're going to have fashion companies that make things for women that are cotton, linen, anything but plastic and polyester.
Mhm.
Doesn't exist. It like this I had to like really look hard for.
Okay.
And I have like 3 things that are non-polyester, right? And
Right.
it's frustrating for me because I'm like, women's clothes are so expensive. Yet everyone is about that, like, throw it away. You wear it once, throw it away, the fast fashion thing. And it's like challenging for me to find things that are fashionable that are not polyester. So I struggle with that still.
I don't
And
know. It sounds like you should have your own clothing line at this point.
I want to,
It
but
sounds
I
like
have 0 fashion sense. So,
it sounds like somebody needs to come up with this
this is a
idea.
really big market that I think
Yeah, I
somebody
just
ought to step into.
you
Like, please don't give me like cotton t-shirts. Like, I'm not gonna wear a t-shirt. I'm
no,
sorry. It's
no, like
not me.
clothes, like
Yeah,
legitimate,
like,
like it can be done. And you just said something that I'm instantly gonna rethink the way I do things. So I go shopping at some of the stores where literally I'm gonna say it, I am a bona fide lover of Aldi. I don't know if you have that where you live,
oh yeah,
but
we do.
love Aldi.
I
But the
don't
thing I like
either.
about Aldi, which is actually a German-based company, they own Trader Joe's, by the way. Um,
Oh,
you can choose to walk over and pick up stuff that's wrapped in plastic, but they have a lot of their produce that's open. So I
mm,
feel like what I'm going to now focus on is I use reusable bags already, which are plastic.
yep.
Now I have to go get some new bags. But I'm gonna find a way to figure that out. I guess I'll go get
Yeah,
a basket. I don't know. But
yeah,
I'm now gonna focus on buying my produce and fruit and everything free and not like no bags of apples. Just
yeah.
now that you said it, there are some things that we can do that could help to do that. And then you made me think about the times that I've always been abroad and I used to remember visiting my dad and I'd say, God, this is so annoying. Like everything, there was the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, right? You'd walk in and you'd go buy your groceries for only 2 to 3 days, and the milk was like in bottles, and nobody had big refrigerators, and nobody had a freezer. And now that I think about it, what a much more healthier lifestyle, that they were buying foods in smaller increments. So they
Yeah.
used them and they would go back to the store every 2 or 3 days, but everything was relatively fresh. And now I'm looking at, well, clearly they knew something that we just decided to not do anymore.
Yeah.
But
It's
that's interesting.
yeah.
Plastic.
And I say this a lot. It's like every time we get a convenience, we lose something. We are sacrificing something every time we get an added convenience. And trust me, like I'm not above it, right? Like I still shop at Costco and buy the big old bag of frozen vegetables because it's easy. It's easy.
Crazy. Yeah.
And like I I make exceptions for things because we can't get away from it. We're not going to get away from it anyway. So where is it the most important, right? And I would say the top tier thing that if you're thinking about plastic is exposure to heat. Every time plastic is exposed to heat, it makes it 25 times worse. So you can think about it even in terms of clothing, right? Like if you're going to the gym, you're better off wearing cotton yoga pants rather than the polyester ones because you're going to sweat in them.
Right.
So the places where you're going to expose to heat vegetables that are being cooked, do not put those in plastic, right? And I have this war with my husband who's like, he will make all the food for the week, pack it into glass containers, but then
Okay.
he'll go and like put the plastic lid on it and stick it in the fridge. And I'm like, like just leave it on the counter. I'll take care of it. Like I want it to cool off before I put the lids on so
Right.
that the plastic doesn't get exposed and seep into the food.
But it's
So,
interesting you say that, because if you think about it, you buy like some frozen stuff and say a lot of stuff that you can cook it over a microwave. Most of the time, a lot of microwave stuff, especially plastic,
mhm,
it's like the little containers. So it's everywhere. But
yeah.
you really said something I think that we have to think about. For every convenience you get, you're giving something up.
Mhm.
So for the fact that we love our cell phones, we love our computer and our tablets, it's an increase in blue light. And now
Yep.
we can see that increase in blue light, which I believe, and research is coming, is going to speak to why so many more people have anxiety, because we have our
Mhm.
brains wired like
Yep.
all day
All the
long from
time,
the moment
all the time.
that we wake up. And it's interesting, just kind of changing those habits. So wow, I knew that this fertility was a rabbit hole, but I did not realize how deep and how many things like legitimately played into it. So let me ask you a question about your book, because
Yeah.
when I read the title, I was like, yes, the so many things your doctors don't tell you. What made you choose that to be the title of that book?
It was mostly the publisher, but like a lot of what I cover in the book are things that still I feel like doctors are not talking about. And like I'll give you the couple of myths that I try to debunk every single day. One is that your fertility is not dropping off of a cliff at 35. And for me, that was a big one because, like, as part of my story, I was trying to decide whether I was going to leave this man or not. And I would not have been able to leave him and not have a child, knowing that I wanted to have a child, if I didn't get to the point of like, oh, 35 is not the end. Like, I'm going to be okay. And as soon as I had that reassurance, I was like, oh, peace out, dude. We're done. So that was a really big one for me. And that myth actually comes from 1800s France, churches, not science, that have records of women not coming to baptize their children after the age of 35. So since the 1800s, we have created this belief in our society that fertility dies at 35. Women in 1800s France were average life expectancy was 32.8,
Oh my
and they
goodness.
were literally dying in childbirth.
Yeah.
So I'm like, really, people? Like, we still are carrying around this belief from the 1800s? Like, We're not in the 1800s.
Right.
So that myth is like over and done with for me. The second one is around IVF. And the myth around IVF is that so many people are made to believe that they're going to walk into the clinic, they're going to do one IVF cycle, and they're going to have a baby at the end of it. And the reality is, IVF success rates are at best 35%. And that's when you're under the age of 35. At worst, by the time you're 42, that success rate has gone down to 2%.
Mm.
So you have a 2% chance that you are going to have a healthy baby at the end of an IVF cycle. And what makes this even worse is that the statistics are based on not one, but 6 IVF cycles. So the doctors are expecting you to go through at least 6 IVF cycles before they tell you, oh, sorry, we can't do anything for you. So do the math on that. 6 cycles, average cycle is going to cost $20,000 plus $7,000 to $10,000 in hormones. You have a $30,000 experience that is not guaranteed the first time, the second time, the third time, 6 times. And you maybe have a 35% chance that it's going to be successful. So I think it's really important for people to understand that because their doctors are not going to tell them that.
Nope.
And then the last one is that you do not need to wait for 12 months of trying before getting tested. And the reason for this is the amount of, and you'll like this, the amount of shame, guilt, questioning on the fertility journey when someone is trying and it's not working. So this woman who is in a couple, automatically she's taking on the responsibility that, we want to have a baby. So my responsibility to make that happen. And when it doesn't happen, she is distraught. Like every single cycle that goes by, little by little, is chipping away at her self-confidence, her belief in her body, and increasing amounts of shame and guilt that this is not happening for her or for them. Simultaneously, guy is not getting tested at all, right? He's like, not my problem. We'll have a baby when we have it. It's not a big deal. Yet for her, it's a really big deal. So that, and then she goes to her OB maybe in 4 months, 6 months, and she's like, what's wrong? Like, I'm not getting pregnant. And the OB says to her, you're fine. Just keep trying. Come back if it doesn't work in 12 months. I think that's the most destructive advice that we can be giving women. Like, if you have not been on this journey, to be going through that for 12 months or even 6 months, which is, it's like the technical is you have to try for 12 consecutive cycles if you're under the age of 35 or 6 consecutive cycles over the age of 35 before they will start to do the testing to figure out if something is quote unquote wrong. I am of the belief that ideally the instant you want to have a child or you are a planner and you're like, we want to have a baby in 7 months from now. What do I need to do? Do the testing. Mm-hmm. That is like probably the biggest game changer. And you may do the testing and everything is fine and there's nothing to worry about. Great. But you may do that testing and figure out like, oh, I'm not ovulating. Oh, my estrogen is low. Oh, my progesterone never goes up. All of those, if you could be testing them in advance, you would save yourself the months and months of trying, the drama, the kind of like roller coaster ride that women are on in this journey, and instead be able to directly work on whatever the thing is, and 12 months from now you'll be pregnant, right? Like
Mhm.
that's the opportunity.
Yes.
And I am so sick of our medical system that's like, oh no, we can't test you. And I had that experience also. I was we were gonna have a baby, and I was like, in a year from now I'll be ready, with my partner now. And we do have a child together. So he we went to the OB and we were like, we're going to be ready in a year. Let's get the testing. And literally 45 minutes of arguing with this woman who was like, absolutely not. You have not tried at all. We can't give you the test. Finally, she was like, forget it. It's not worth arguing with you. I will order the test. I will make sure that it does not get covered by insurance. You will pay $2,000 for this testing. And I was like, really? You should have just told me that 5 minutes, like 45 minutes ago, because I can order it for like $150. And she was like, really? Well, then go for it. And I was like, I will.
Mhm.
Because like, why wouldn't I want to plan and know what's happening with my fertility and figure it out well before the point that I'm struggling?
See, that's the thing right there. It's like there's two things that I think when someone's, whether you're a young couple or you're married, you want to have kids. I always say, we used to be like, it's important to consider doing some couples counseling before you get married, just to make sure you're on the same page and you think about things. You'd be surprised when people end up in couples therapy after they're married and things aren't working. The things they didn't bother to talk about before they got married,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
surfaces and it becomes a problem. It's like you were probably having communication issues before you got married, but you chose not to address issues. Now I feel like the other side of this coin, I would say to young people who are talking about getting married is, something just like you should consider counseling just to make sure you're on the same page. You should also see someone about your fertility, because
Mhm.
I feel like even if you feel like you are a healthy person, you never know what can happen. And to me, this just sounds like preparing just to have a healthy baby down the road. Like
Mhm.
you're going to do all these things to make sure you're putting your body in the best situation to have a
Exactly.
baby, which to me sounds like you're going to probably produce a healthy baby too. So
Right.
there's so many benefits to consider this. So people come to you even if they don't have fertility issues. Is that fair?
Mhm.
Is that something they can do if they're interested?
Um, they probably don't necessarily want to work with us directly, but we do within a few weeks. So it's not out yet, but
Okay.
in just a few weeks, we are launching a tech platform that will support people to figure out if there's an underlying issue with their fertility or potential fertility,
Okay.
and be able to work on it without a doctor. So you don't have to like we're not inexpensive, right? Like all of the
Right.
things that we do are out of pocket, but I really am so passionate that people have the support. So I have basically been working on building this for years and it's almost ready. Our tech keeps breaking,
I
but
like
as soon as the tech works, we are good to launch.
This
And
is fantastic. So there's going to be a
yeah,
resource that people can start tracking and figuring out to get to that point to
and it's a
prepare.
free resource.
And it's going to be
Free.
a free
Like
resource.
there's no cost to doing the analysis. So you answer a bunch of questions, you can plug in your labs if you have them, and it will analyze and say, hey, you might have a gut issue. You have blood sugar issues, not as a diagnosis, but as a potential, like, hey, maybe you should get tested for this.
Hmm.
Or if you don't feel like getting tested, you can also just be like, oh, I'm going to do my diet and lifestyle and take some supplements and voila, and we'll see where it goes. So you really get the resource to be able to say, your body is always experiencing things, right? Like if you get the awareness early, and I think someone had that question of like, how do I know about my sleep cycles? What's optimal? So that an analyzer will actually ask questions about sleep and will say, hey, you have circadian rhythm dysregulation based on what you've told us. So it's basically like a doctor in your back pocket to be able to understand and assess what's happening with the hormones and could they be potentially an issue for fertility. And like 90% accurate, right? Like we did some preliminary testing. We've tested our patients who we have lab studies on that we can be like, hey, fill this out and tell me if it tracks.
Right.
And they were like, oh my God, this is exactly what you told me. And I'm like,
Mhm.
yes, score. Like, that's the
Love
goal.
this. You make sure you let us know so we can promote it and let people know, because it's just tools like this that I feel like can help you to go to then your, provider and have a conversation. At least you're going in with information. I always say
Mhm.
providers like information, like when did it start, frequency, intensity. And a lot
Yeah.
of people don't have that information, and that just helps to have a good conversation. Then I say, and you've said it too in your own words, if you feel like you're sharing this information with someone and you do not feel seen or heard, that's when you need a new provider. Because
Absolutely.
what is the point of going to someone when you know something isn't right, but they're not listening? And
Mhm.
that's the whole piece of finding someone who's going to be open and ready to listen. Oh, it has been so amazing having you on. I could talk to you forever. We could be here for 2 hours just talking, because there's like so many questions. So thank you for so much for coming on. Everybody, to learn more about Dr. Aumatma Simmons and her proven holistic approach, and it's very proven. You've worked with definitely women in their 30s and their 40s, and there's been success. You can always go find information on her website, which is www.holisticfertilityinstitute.com. You can go and look there. I always say that's a great way to be able to, and I think everything they need to know about you is right there. Like
Mhm.
literally, it's right
Mhm.
there. So make sure you go to the website. I'm really big about telling people to get social with my guests, because you post a lot of pertinent information. The articles I read just informed me. So, they always say if you want to, hide things from people, put it in print. Well, I'm going to tell you something. It's worth it. But so many people are social media people. Let's just be honest. So you're on YouTube and Instagram at Holistic Fertility Doctor, Facebook, which I know is a join group, but they have to go to Facebook at
Mhm.
Fertility AF and then ask to
Mhm.
join. And she'll
Mhm.
decide if you're worthy enough to be in the group. Hopefully you
Mhm.
will be. And of course,
And
TikTok, people love their
I'm
TikTok.
seeing the little like thing that goes across. So I also made that shift. All of my handles are at Holistic Fertility Doctor.
Yes. Okay. See? Okay. Good. So now that's the first one. That's all you have to know. So if you
Yeah.
follow her, you're going to get on a regular basis some good information
Mhm.
altogether. And of course, what I liked and dug into was the podcast, Egg Meets Sperm.
Mhm.
Um, it's on Apple, podcasts, Spotify. You can listen. The episodes are great. They're highly informative just by literally listening to your podcast. And I'm pretty sure if people pick up your book, the Fertility Secrets, what your doctor didn't tell you about baby making. I feel like if you're in that mindset that you want to start having kids, you probably should pick up this book and start
Mhm.
doing this research in advance so that you can be in the best possible position to be able to be like, hey, I'm ready to have a baby and I've done the work to have what I want to be a healthy pregnancy. So thank you so much for checking into the show. I truly, truly appreciate you being here. And make sure when the app is ready to be launched, you let us know so we can definitely share it with our listeners.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me, Maya. This was awesome.
Yes, yes. Everybody, this has been my wonderful, wonderful guest who I have learned so much from in episode 64. And we talked fertility and then some. So make sure, like I said, you follow, you go to the website to gain all this great information that she has definitely put on the table. Until next time, because I'm hoping to have you back at some point to talk about more stuff. We appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday to be here with us.
Thank you.
All right. Bye bye. All right, everybody. So we had a lot of stuff right there that you just learned. And if you are looking into fertility, if you are having some issues like you've got PCOS, you've got endometriosis, any of these things, don't be afraid to ask questions, because go do some research. And I guarantee you, it's going to be a nugget of something you read that she shared that you can take back to your doctor and you can chat with him about. And let's be honest, if you're chatting and you don't feel like you're getting that feedback or they don't feel as knowledgeable, and let's be clear here, all doctors are not created equal. This is why I searched out someone who really was passionate about women's health. And I could tell in their practice that they were. I switched my gynecologist because I felt, well, my gynecologist told me, I don't need to know your estrogen level. You're at the age, yeah, you're in menopause. That was her response to me. As my whole world was falling apart and everything was turned upside down and didn't make sense to me, I went on and found somebody else who was willing to engage me in the conversation and teach me. And you should be willing to do the same thing when it comes to your physical health, but also your mental health. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate everyone tuning in to the show. Remember, you can find past episodes on my podcast platforms. Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio is one as well. Spotify, Amazon Audibles. Just search M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and you can find all of my things there. Of course, you can listen to episodes of the podcast on my website. Just go to maya-speaks.com, click on the podcast drop down, and you can listen there. Make sure you subscribe and share my YouTube channel, but also my social media. It's all M.A.Y.A Speaks to You. See, I'm moving up in the world. I'm getting there. And of course, on my website, make sure you check out those inspirational blogs. I am so proud of that blog. It has some great insight. I only post once a week because I want you to chew on it and think about it. And of course, my menopause blog is good, Me on Pause. Some great information, everything about understanding things from headache. If you happen to be a woman and you have ADHD, and you are perimenopausal or menopausal, there are some things that you should understand about how things might be different for you and how you might be struggling more than most because you already have something that you work with your executive functioning. So that's another reason to check out my blog, Me on Pause. That's it for this go around, everybody. Episode 74, Let's Talk Fertility. We did it and we did it big. And my guest was absolutely awesome. Remember, this show will be available on all the podcast platforms and the YouTube channel so you can share it with other people. Maybe this conversation wasn't for you, but it doesn't mean it may not be for somebody else. All right. So you know what I always say. Until next time, everyone, remember, your present becomes your past and your future is no more. So make the most of every day. Be well, stay safe, and of course, always continue to be amazing. Ciao.
Whether you're on the go or listening on your cell phone, tablet, or laptop, you can find the show in the iTunes, Google, and iHeartRadio platforms.
With all due respect, I believe this is going to be our finest hour.
Just search M.A.Y.A, My Ambition, Your Ambition, and get ready to be inspired and motivated to harness your ambition.